Now we're going to learn some tips and tricks about how to change the passive voice sentence into the active voice. Let's start with the sentences. We have three different sentences because I want to show you some variants. We have the agreement was signed by all the board members, a cure for cancer is being developed, the house was sold quickly. Now, these are the steps that you should memorize to know how to change the passive voice into the active voice. So let's start with the first sentence. Okay? It's the agreement was signed by all the board members. If you notice, this one does give us an agent. We know who did the action, all the board members. So let's look at the number one step. If there is an agent introduced by, put it at the front. If not, think who would have done the action. Okay, in this case we do have it. So let's start with that. All the board members. Okay, now we have the verb. In passive voice we have was signed. So we need to figure out how to conjugate it in the active voice. So let's look at the number 2. In what tense is the verb to be conjugated? The verb to be is was. So don't look at sign, just think of was. What tense is that? That's simple past. That's a simple past of to be. You know, it can be was or were. In this case, is was. So let's go to the next point. Substitute the verb to be with the past participle verb conjugated in the tense which the verb to be was conjugated. Okay, so we know it's simple past. We have the past participle signed. It's the past participle of a regular verb to sign. So we're going to conjugate to sign in the simple past, which is sign. In this case, it's the same one. But if it was a different one, let's say it was chosen, the past tense of to choose would be chose. Okay, so let's write that one. Signed. There you go. Then it says put the direct object at the end. In this case, in the passive voice, it was called the passive subject, the agreement. That's the direct object. So then we just put it there. All the board members signed the agreement. And there you go. You already have your active voice sentence from your passive voice sentence. Let's look at the next example. Okay, the next example is a cure for cancer is being developed. I put this one here because it doesn't have a by and an agent. So now you have to figure out what the subject of your sentence would be. So who do you think is developing a cure for cancer? In this case, you can make an assumption. In this case, I can say scientists. So let's go with that. Scientists. Okay. Then we do the same thing. The verb is being developed. So what tense is a verb to be conjugated? You have is being. There in reality you have two verbs to be. One is and the other one is being. Now remember that in this case you have is plus a gerund, a verb that ends in ing. That is an auxiliary. So the verb to be you have to be looking at is being. So it together is being is a present progressive. So then the verb to develop, because you have developed, the past participle of to develop, has to be conjugated in the present perfect. So in this case, and since scientists is plural, I'm going to go with are developing. Okay. And then we put the direct object at the end. So a cure of cancer, for cancer. A cure for cancer. There you go, you have scientists are developing a cure for cancer. We did one where you didn't have the agent, but you figure out what would be a good subject for that sentence. In a lot of sentences, you know what the subject would be. But what happens when you really don't know who did the action? So let's look at the next example. The next example is the house was sold quickly. Do we know who sold the house? No. Is it important? Not really. So what do we do here? In the first step it says if it was someone anonymous, you can use the impersonal they. So I'm going to start with they. Okay. In this case, I will already give you the entire sentence. So was sold. Well, again, we look at the verb to be, which is was, simple past. So to sell, conjugated in the past tense, is sold. And then I put the passive subject, which is the direct object, the house, and then whatever extra information we have. quickly. And there you go. That's how you change the passive voice into the active, and you have the three different situations where you do have an agent, and the second one you don't have an agent, but you can figure out who it was, and the third where you don't have an agent and you really don't know who it was, so you just use the impersonal they. So good luck and keep memorizing and reviewing these examples.